We do not do a lot of guests around here. And our next guest is no stranger to college football fans. In fact, I believe he's the first and only non-head coach in college football to have his own commercial, his own national commercial. For those of that have watched this network grow over the years, one thing you've probably noticed is we don't do a lot of guests at all. If we do, I'm either a tremendous fan of that person's work and the feeling is mutual between that person and I, or they're a very close friend. I'd like to think after spending about 2.5 hours breaking bread with this man coming up next, I not only respect the hell out of his work, but I'd like to call him a close friend as well. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Scott Cochran.
Yeah.
How we doing, Coach?
What's happening, baby? Just happy to be on. Happy to be on with y'all.
Can I get one early? Can I get oh yeah? Can I get one?
Oh yeah.
There it is right there. All right, Coach Cochran is with us today on behalf of the American Addiction Recovery Association. Coach, I'm obviously going to get you to talk football here in just a minute, but as a man in recovery myself, your story and your current fight is one that I'd like to point some attention to. So tell the folks at home what you've got going on right now with Eliminate the Whisper, man.
Yeah, started a nonprofit called American Addiction Recovery Association, and man, it's been special. Really, the purpose is to save lives and to eliminate the stigma. And our tagline and our website is eliminatethewhisper.com. And keeping things as simple as possible. What I'm finding is more now than ever. I've experienced it myself. Was this shame and guilt cycle that you can just you don't want to tell anybody because you're ashamed of it. And then it gets so bad, you think that you're a bad person. So you never reach out for help. And so I wanted to do something bigger than football. But I'm going to use my football stuff. You know, I've had a lot of success in the SEC. So I wanted to use that platform to really try to help people. And some of the cool things we got going, like we're trying to put Narcan boxes across the country. I've met with people in DC. Every state is interested. Now we got to push it forward. In Georgia, in the state of Georgia, in the capital, there is a Narcan box as soon as you walk in the door, because Governor Kemp was all for it. He wanted to get it out there, let people know this saves lives. And so what that is it's an overdose reversal kit. And then my big project that I'm most excited about is the Purple Project, where we are going to get teams. Nike has promised me 10 to 15 teams are going to wear something purple in the month of September, because September is recovery month and the color of recovery is purple. So we're basically taking Susan G. Komen, what she did for breast cancer, and we're going to do that with addiction. And we're going to get this whisper out of here. And we're going to start helping people find recovery, help people understand that it's a disease, that there's nothing to be ashamed about. And if you seek help, we can find it for you. So that's really that's my new passion, my new drive.
Coach, the one thing I want to ask you about this, and you mentioned the shame that comes with addiction sometimes. Like for me, I didn't even talk about the struggles that I had until I almost conquered them. And then at that point, I almost felt comfortable coming out and speaking about that. When you go to talk to people who may or may not be struggling with addiction, or if you're speaking to someone right now listening to us today that's still in the fights of addiction, how do you go about speaking to that person to break that shame cycle, if you will?
Number one is you're not alone. Man, there are 29 million Americans in active recovery. They are in recovery, 29, and that's all that we know of, right? But there's also 46 million in active addiction. So if I'm speaking to the 46 million that are in active addiction that we know of, the number one thing is you're not alone. There is help everywhere. Go walk into an AA meeting, an NA meeting, whatever meeting you can find. Reach out to me. I've opened up my social media to everybody, that anybody that messages me and they're struggling. I was on the phone with 5 people today that I've never met. And all they sent one was on TikTok, and 3 were on Instagram, one was on Twitter, and they just said, I'm struggling, I need help. And I just sent them my number and I said, just call me. And I've been on the phone all day. I think I got 2 of them in treatment. They're going to go tomorrow morning to treatment. But that's what it's about, is just knowing that you can do this. That recovery is real. Like, that's the biggest thing I can tell you, is that you never have to deal with being a slave to alcohol or any substance ever again.
Absolutely. And again, the website is Eliminate the Whisper. All right, Coach, you spent several years with Sarkisian. You spent nearly a decade, I would assume, with Coach Smart over the full tenure and time lapse. I think they're 2 of the more brilliant minds in college football and in the sport entirely, one of which offensively, one of which defensively. I got 2 questions. One, the first one, let's attack. How are these guys similar? How are Sarkisian and Smart, how are they similar as football coaches?
They're very detailed. And, I think the one thing that is different with Sark is he's got a little bit of the Pete Carroll side and the Saban side. Because I think he probably spent more time with Pete than he did with Saban, or it's even something like that. So he's got the light, more of a coach's, like a player's coach mentality, but both of their details are what separates them from everybody else. Like, when you talk about, the most important phases of the game, right? The end of the second quarter, beginning of the third, and then obviously the fourth, like that clock management and that time management is crucial to them. Those 4 minutes from the end of the first half, beginning of the second half, those 4 minutes, and then the last 4 minutes at the end of the game, they know how to manage the clock because they're detail oriented, and you see it in their players. You see it the way their players play. They play with a lot of discipline. And so they're very similar in their preparation for games.
I've always found that most great coaches share a commonality in the term of obsession. Like, the reason they're so detailed is because they are so obsessed in the craft that they have. And I could see it in both of them. Now, how are they different, Scott?
I think it's so easy to see the differences because of offense and defense, right? I feel like Sark is a lot looser with his players. I feel like Sark, you have a kind of an open door policy as a player, whereas Kirby is so wrapped up in the details and so wrapped up on recruiting and getting to the next thing that it's business, if that makes sense. Not saying Sark isn't business, but with Kirby, it's more of an NFL model. And in Sark, it's more of a kind of open door, kind of keep it loose, play the next play. And some people would see it as casual, which is not at all. But that's how you would term the two. One would be super business oriented, and the other one would be more of player coach type guy.
As you're talking, Coach, I'm thinking this might be an offense-defense separation in terms of ideology and mindset. Like, all the hard-nosed, hard-ass coaches that I think of historically, whether it be Saban, Belichick, Kirby, whoever it is, most of those guys are defensive-oriented, whereas you think all the offensive guys like Pete Carroll or like Steve Sarkisian or even like Kyle Shanahan, most of those guys are like you're talking about, they're players coaches. I think the one guy that bucks this trend is maybe Mike Tomlin with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, he is a player-led coach and a player-oriented coach that was a defensive background guy. So, but most of these guys are, because that's what defense is. It's detail-oriented. It's hard-nosed. Got to play with effort and attitude, correct?
Right. Yeah. I think where you find with like Saban and Kirby is the players don't love their coach until they realize the lesson. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they don't fall in love with like the process until they become the starter. They don't fall in love with all the details of like the simple things that you make such a big deal. Like, Saban always talked about when he coached in the military, how they picked up their fork a certain type of way and gave it to their mouth right back to the same spot to put it down. And the question was why. He wanted to know, why do they do that? And he said, well, when I have them over a village and I need him to drop a bomb, but then I changed my mind last minute. I need to know that that guy understands what to do, how to do. And I think Kirby has learned that probably better than any coach that's learned under Coach Saban by far.
There are certainly things that he seems to have applied that are Sabanisms that he's maybe tweaked. That's the one thing I hear about. Like T-Rob talked about this, right? He said there's very much so Saban ideologies around this place, but every bit of it has been altered and tweaked to Kirby's method and how he wants things. So it's like 90% the same, but 10% different. And I think that 10% different has certainly played to Kirby's favor. Coach, when you look at this football game between Georgia and Texas, is there an area of this game where you see a significant advantage on either side?
This is so hard for me, I have to tell you, because I had this same question when Georgia went to Bama. And when I did that interview, I said that Georgia has the upper hand because of the discipline, because of the mindset that Kirby has, and how DeBoer had never been in the SEC. He has no idea what he's about to walk into. And so when it comes to this one, these are the things that I think about, right? If I'm coaching on Georgia's side, like, okay, Texas is normally really hot. That's not going to be a factor this time. I wouldn't think it's going to be that bad, right? But normally Texas, you go play in Texas. I've played in A&M a bunch of times. I don't know if I've ever played in Texas. No, I don't think I have. But at A&M, it was every year we played them, it was hot. It was beautiful. I loved it. Players loved it because it was so doggone hot. So I don't think that's going to be a factor in this game. And now I've seen Georgia go into two really tough environments. One didn't have the success on the scoreboard, but they had success, a lot of success. The other one didn't have – the scoreboard said they had success but didn't play very well against Kentucky.
Yeah.
So they've gone into wars. So they're kind of war ready. And so Texas – Michigan was supposed to be a challenge. It wasn't. OU was supposed to be a challenge. It wasn't. The only other team they had was Mississippi State. They haven't really been challenged. And is that because they're that good? That's the question. And I think we're going to find out a lot about Texas this week. But I also think we're going to find out about Georgia too, because the schedules don't get easier. It's awesome the way the SEC is right now. Everybody gets to play everybody in 2 years. That's the coolest thing ever. But I think you take environment out of it, you take the heat out of it. I think, of course, Kirby's going to have Coach Smart's going to go in there. His guys are going to be hungry. The only fear that I would have is the pressure, right? You've lost one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure, and some people rise to the occasion, which there's a lot of players on Georgia's team I know can rise to the occasion. Seen them do it. But then does that pressure cause them to be really tight, right?
Yeah.
Are they going to – the first two drives, are they going to punt, right? Like that's – and is that a loss, or can they flip the field, And I'll tell you, Texas's special teams, like that guy's the staple. That's the real one of the real reasons why I got into special teams was because of Banks, who's the special teams coordinator at Texas, because he's that good. So will you be able to flip the field if you have to punt early? So man, it's gonna be a good game.
Oh, it's
God.
The juice, baby, the juice. Ain't no foos with this.
So good.
Ain't no foos. Coach, I'm glad you hit on special teams. Kirby, hold on to your seat. I'm asking a special teams question.
Oh my God.
You are a special teams guy. That was your most recent, involvement with high-end college football. My question to you is, and I know Georgia fans have this one as well, what's missing right now? What's the key to getting Anthony Evans loose on one of these punt returns, man? Because they look so close every week.
Okay, so the problem is this. How do I say this without cussing?
Hey, no, you're good, man. You're good.
I'm good. Okay,
just let it go.
Let it rip.
So the punt that we do now is full of bitch assness. It is the softest shit I've ever seen. Let's get two shield guys to stand here and just block, and then everybody runs down the field free. Like, because of that, you're not getting good punts. So it's hard to get a return going. And a lot of coaches are afraid to just all out rush, because when they all out rush, they're afraid they're going to run into the punter. They're afraid a player is going to jump over the shield and get a penalty, because they just want possession of the ball.
Yeah.
Right. That's like when a coach, especially a defensive coach, gets a third down and gets off the field, he just wants the ball. Right. Let the offense go to work and let the defense get a rest. And it's really hard to do because of this bitch assness we do now. We got Australian punters. Like, I love Brett Thorson. It's my guy, but he can pocket punt probably better than anybody in the country too. But like this whole, let's get rugby guys so nobody can return a ball. Like, get out of here. Like, let's just get in a pro punt formation and punt the ball, and let's get some returns. So I think that's the problem we're having.
And this is across the sport, man. Everybody is reduced their hang time. They've stopped kicking it as deep, because what you're talking about is they don't want to allow an explosive, and defensively they're afraid that they're going to create a negative and extend the possession by going after the ball.
Right. And if you remember Jeremy Pruitt, he's the one that when he had a punter back there, he had I don't even think he was Australian. I think he was Irish. And this guy would just punt it all over the map. And he was literally trying to hit players as they're running down the field so that you couldn't return it. And it was like, what is the method to the madness? And then they beat South Carolina because of a muffed punt. So like, there's different ways to do it. I just think that they're trying to take the return part out of the game. And most of the time is you get a really good return when you actually rush, because everybody's got to hold up. So trying to figure that out. And, you got Arian Smith as a gunner. Lord have mercy.
Yeah, good luck returning at all. I love that.
I might be triple vicing him if I'm Texas.
Coach, looking at this Alabama-Tennessee football game coming up, what do you think's been the issue leading to some inconsistent football from Alabama?
Man, I think it's you completely. Well, first of all, let's talk about this real quick. I'm 22-0 against Tennessee. I just want to throw that out there before I go on any further. I mean, I got Mississippi State has beat me once. Ole Miss has beaten me twice. But Tennessee, no, sir.
You got a vacation home off of Tennessee.
Yes, sir. I got a whole beach in Knoxville. But I would say that it is a huge change. And I think if in order to replace Coach Saban, you either have to get a mini Coach Saban or go the route they went. And this guy is very West Coast, man. He is very loose, but he listens to his players. So it is a player-led deal. And obviously they're running into issues of have to play every week. The SEC, Kentucky can get you. Obviously Vanderbilt can get you, which I never thought that they could get anybody, but they went ahead and got them. So I think it's the head coach's job to keep the guys on edge, right? Yeah. Like, fear doesn't work. You got to make it personal. Like, if you try to say, "Oh man, if you're not careful, such and such is going to beat you," players don't listen to that. But if you make it personal, like, "Hey, the guy you're going one-on-one against, this dude's a stud. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. You show out against him, then you're going to be in those conversations." That's where these kids get motivated now. And then they're going to watch extra film. They're going to have details when they watch the film. They're going to go do the extra. But if they think for 1 second the psyche doesn't come into play, when you're casual, everything's loose, everything's la-di-da, then it kind of, when things go south, all of a sudden those kids are questioning the head coach, right? All of a sudden they're like, wait, we used to get our ass kicked at practice. We used to bust our tails in the off season. We used to do all these things. And now it's pretty easy. And we practice in the morning. Like, I'm off for the rest of the day. Yeah. Like, it's a different mentality and it can work. But I think that's where they're struggling. I think that's where their biggest issue is.
And I think, and I don't know if this has even been talked about. I don't listen to a ton of Alabama content, to be honest with you, but I don't know if this idea of, hey, you should have expected some growing pains because of how vastly different these guys are. And that's okay. Like, it's okay that they are vastly different, because I've said on this network, Scott, that if they had just hired a mini Saban clone, if they just hired a guy that came in and tried to do it Saban's way, there's a portion of that locker room, and tell me if I'm wrong, but there's a portion of that locker room that might have looked at them as like, you're just trying to do it the way he did it and you're not doing it as good. So you might have lost a small portion of that locker room anyways.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. The only way it would have worked is if you had someone, Matt, there's no names that would come to mind. I mean, obviously Kirby got a big raise, so he obviously had a call, but I agree that it needed to be flipped, but now I think they're in that locker room questioning, are we like, this who we want to be now? Like, it's cool. Like, we all got our podcasts, we all got our stuff on the side, but is this who Alabama is? Yeah. And I also think, they came out strong for the first 4 games and everybody was drinking the Kool-Aid, and then they lose to Vandy, and all of a sudden that rat poison got their ass.
Yeah, you would have almost rather it have been South Carolina at home. I think they would have swallowed that one a little bit better than Vandy on the road. Hey, Coach, how can people, again, one more time, support Eliminate the Whisper, man?
Yeah, eliminatethewhisper.com. Come check us out. And you can get involved in a number of different ways. Obviously, donations are great. If you need help, you can go to eliminatethewhisper.com, or you can hit any of my social media. I'm at Coach Yeah on most of them. And I will help you, direct you to a rehab or the nearest AA meeting, whatever you need for that. But just come check us out at eliminatethewhisper.com, because you'll see we are making some changes and we're eliminating stigma, and we're going to stop whispering about addiction, and we're going to start letting people know that recovery is real and there is help out there.
Love it, Coach. I appreciate you for coming on, man. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Man, appreciate you. See you.
No doubt. That was Scott Cochran, a man who has 8 national title rings.
It's a lot of rings.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah.
And it was so fun to sit down and have lunch with him and just kind of talk through everything that, and just from a coaching career standpoint, do you know how good of a strength and conditioning coordinator you have to be to basically work your way into Nick Saban's number 2? Which by the end of his run out there in Tuscaloosa, that's what it was. I mean, he was the secondary face to that program.
Yeah.
And the only way he did it was just by being a crazy person. He was just out here, you need me to do that? I'll do that. Oh, I don't have time for it? Don't matter. I'll find time for it. And just figuring out ways to be as useful and as well-trained and as many facets as humanly possible.
Yeah, I think that's the longest I've heard him talk with his inside voice.
Yeah, that's what the chat was saying. A prime example of your energy and your infectiousness can take you a long way in this world.
That's what I was about to say. Is you can feel the energy just through a screen, man.
Yeah,
as soon as he starts getting riled, I was like, "Oh, I'm ready. I'm ready too."
That laugh too. That laugh is so contagious.
Yeah.
Guys, let's wrap up the national hour. Hey, hold on. First of all, hey, that man Scott Cochran, give him 3. Let's hit